Welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for Council and the members for approving me to speak. Some of you may have heard me speak before about this matter. I feel like every couple of years I kind of get on my soapbox and I get up here and I start to rant about poverty in the city. Here I am again, hello. So included, I thought everybody would receive a copy, but I guess it, can you put the document that I sent up, please? So in 2016-2017, Council enacted a $50 million poverty reduction strategic plan. At that time, I had sent a document to City Council to discuss this, so I guess I should introduce myself more formally. So my name is Sarah. I'm an addiction specialist. I'm located in Hamilton. I've lived here my whole life. I've worked here since 2005. I run a private practice and I work for another organization providing EAP support to workers who are struggling with alcohol and substance use disorder. I sit on the board of directors for the Canadian Certification of Addiction Counselors. I'm super nervous, I don't know why. So I sit on the board of directors for the regulatory body. I actually chair our harm reduction committee as well, and we're trying to start establishing best practices for people who declare themselves as harm reduction workers, as this is a growing industry and we want to make sure that there's best practices in place and guidelines. That way we are kind of doing the best we can, because we know that people with addictions and mental health are a very vulnerable population. I actually chair the board of directors for a organization down on Barton Street called the Bridge from Prison to Community. And then I'm here on behalf of Youth Matters Inc. We are a nonprofit that's just starting up to try to help some of the issues that are going on in the city. So I sent this document and it was about the strategic plan, and I kind of outlined some of the issues that the city didn't touch on. Back then it was zoning. We know that housing, right now we're kind of seeing this because we're building condos and different housing, and to be honest, right, people who are kind of in the middle class, lower class, and people that are, you know, designated in poverty can't afford to even buy a house, let alone rent, because we know as the cost of housing goes up, the rental units goes up, and we're kind of now seeing this kind of large amount of people suffering. The shelters are full. Mental health, there isn't enough room for people to get in right now. If I were to refer a client to get a diagnosis or some kind of help from West Fifth or something, they're looking at 2 years to see a psychiatrist, right? So that's where I come in. I end up seeing people because now to cope with life, unfortunately, they'll either turn to suicide or drug and alcohol addiction. One of the other issues was jobs. Right now, with the government CEBA loan, we see a lot of small businesses, they're gonna probably close up. So if you can't get a job and you've put kind of your life towards building one to kind of hire yourself and people in community, we're seeing that kind of go down the hill. And basically, all of the things I just talked about back then, kind of seeing it happen in real time was very disappointing. Can I show the video, please? So from there, this is kind of where we are now. And I do apologize. I don't know why I'm so nervous. On the hill. And basically, all of the things I just talked about back then, kind of seeing it happen in real time was very disappointing. Can I show the video, please? So from there, this.
Just sorting out technical difficulty. Hang in there.
you. And so while we recognize that addiction and mental health doesn't drive all cases of people experiencing homelessness, in 2018, the Government of Canada kind of went and did a study, and I'm going to try to speed it up. So they did find that 25.1% of people that were experiencing housing loss did kind of fall into place because of addiction and mental health, and that was the highest reason why, ahead of all other situations. And they did find that as time went on, 19% of people at 0 to 2 months had addiction and mental health. By the time it hit 6 months or more, it went up to 28.2%. In 2016, when they measured that, it was at 20%, and at 2018, it was 26%. My ask is that we give money to agencies and nonprofits in the city. I would like to see that money prioritized to agencies that are going to start hiring addictions professionals that are certified and licensed and can start working with people in our shelter systems, drop-in centers, and anywhere else. I know social workers and everyone are trying to do their part, but knowing these numbers, and there's so many people struggling with addictions and mental health, we're not going to get them housed, we're not going to get them into, to see doctors and stuff. So one of the least things we can do is prioritize money being given to agencies who will put addiction specialists in so people can see someone immediately. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We do have a speakers list, Councillor Wang and then Councillor Pauls. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Sarah, thank you so much for your delegation, and it is definitely top of mind for this council. So I wanted to ask a couple of questions. Recently, we saw a workforce development strategy that was put forward from our economic development, to which they did identify several different factors, one of which being housing, others could have been lack of supply in terms of the talent. So my question to you is, your ask is specific to putting more funding and dollars towards agencies that can help support on the mental health, essentially trying to be on the upstream side of getting ahead of the problem. But what we also heard was that there is fewer and fewer people that are qualified in order to work in this sort of field. Burnout is real because the need is so great. So how would you, if you were sitting in this spot today where I am, what would you do? What are the mechanisms or the levers that you would recommend in order for us to get that moving?
Okay, so through you to the chair. Like I had mentioned earlier, I actually sit on the board of directors for the regulatory body across Canada, so I can tell you there is no shortage of counselors and people. We certify people from peer support to recovery to counselors to, I'm actually also a medication-assisted treatment specialist, so I work with people who have chronic relapse with opioid and alcohol use disorder to use different kind of medications that they've developed to help them with that. That way they can get through the counseling and their cravings and all the different stuff are kind of dampered. That way it doesn't drive them to use to kind of help them with their pause symptoms. But I would possibly say to ask them to see the job postings they put out. One of the biggest things that would be a hit is obviously a pay decrease. So a person like myself, if I were to come into an agency and they're going to say, we'll give you $20 because we know a lot of private practice, it's $100+ an hour to see people. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people can't access help, because the cost to get through private practice and the wait time to get it through the public system, right? We understand people that are in the top tier of income earners can go into different private facilities and they have that available, but the middle class and everyone else, there's nothing, right? So basically it would be that, like, what are the job postings they're putting out? I rarely see job postings for addiction specific in the city. I used to work at an agency locally, and that's what the ED at the time and the supervisor said to me, you took a pay cut to work here. And I said, I didn't get into this field for money. I actually have lived experience. Between 13 and 17, I was intermittently homeless. I struggled with issues with addiction from drugs and alcohol and kind of got myself straightened out. And that's why I kind of got into this field. And so that's one of my things why I'm like, we really need to have people who understand this. You know what I mean? Like I said, social workers, doctors, everyone plays their part. But this is kind of like a specialty, right? If you went to the doctor and you said, I need a surgery, or I have this gastro problem, the family doctor's there, and they're amazing and they're educated, but you might want to go to the gastro doctor or to the surgeon, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at is, maybe that's what's missing is a lot of people aren't getting that specialist kind of thing where people have sat through school for, you know, a year, 2 years, you know, spent hundreds of dollars to be a membership of a regulatory body, had to write tests to prove they know what they're talking about and kind of get that level of care that might help them, because then not only does it help them with that, but it helps them to become more independent, because when you start to heal from your trauma and from the addiction, you can now become more independent where you can get back into the workforce and you could start earning money, you know what I mean? And you might be able to rent somewhere instead of having to go to public housing or the food bank, right? And that's what we're really looking to do, is we want to see people heal so they're not coming through a revolving door for public services, because people do heal. One of my other concerns is the federal government is legislating that people with mental health and addictions can now kind of put their name out to get assisted suicide. And that's a big concern, because in Hamilton we see so many people struggling with mental health and with addiction. And you know, someone like me, I've had to sit through training. I actually have doctors from the US asking me what is happening up here, that we would offer that as a solution to a treatable disease.
Thank you for that. That was a lot. I think that I would just like to clarify, because I think that what you spoke about was a couple of things that kind of piqued my interest, which was in your presentation, you spoke about how there was a shift between people working for organizations and now working for themselves. So there is that sort of move towards sort of private practice. But you also did mention, because what we've been hearing at this table is that there is a lack of talent in terms of this level of specialty. And because there is a lack of talent, we are seeing the people that are existing in these roles are burning out. So what you just kind of reconciled that for me was, what we ought to be looking at is investing in all of those agencies in order to bring the pay rate up, potentially attracting people from private practice into public practice. And then that is how we can build up the workforce in order to support the ongoing need in this community. Is that kind of where you were going with that? I just wanted to get some clarification.
Yeah, so through the chair, so that is one thing, right? So there is an agency locally, and I'm looking to partner with them, and it would be even something like you could contract someone to come in 1 day a week, you know what I mean, for 3 hours, and say to them, you know, you're not going to get your normal private practice pay, but we're willing to take a reduce, right? Like in my private practice, I do pro bono, I do reduced scale rates. I have numerous clients who haven't paid me, and I don't chase them for the money because I understand where they're at. But the thing is that now is affecting, you know, me. So that's kind of where we're stuck, because we want to help, but at the same time, we have limitations because we have insurance payments, we have our business license and all of these other things. But yes, I believe that if you did put some kind of package out there to agencies and say, you know, if you had someone come in even on a contract once or twice a week for a couple hours to work with clients where they're at right there, so they don't even have to leave your agency, you will prioritize funding to them.
Okay, thank you. Last question through you, Deputy Mayor, is this is one of those challenges that we have, because as a municipality, we've never traditionally paid for healthcare. And this is absolutely healthcare related. I think that we're trying to be creative with how we move this, because the fact is all of those funds have been downloaded to us from the province, and it's been really hard to look at where is the need and how do we prioritize a very finite amount of taxpayer dollars in order to help facilitate something like that. So I would say, given that you have outlined many different initiatives, what would you say is the most important that we ought to be really putting a lot of our financial focus on? Like I said, you targeted a lot of different areas. So what is in your opinion the most important that we ought to be looking at?
Through the chair, I think the return on investment, when you have people who are going to see a counselor and they're able to overcome their issues, and like I said, those people would not still be in the line for housing, for maybe unemployment, different stuff like this. So as we're investing in the addiction and people are getting help, you're going to streamline them out of other services that are also costing large amounts of money as well, right? Like it wouldn't help if we got rent control and a lot of stuff there, but you know what I mean? I mean, when people are able to overcome the addiction, they're, like I said before, they're able to return to the workforce, they're able to return to their families, they're able to mend relationships with the social system, the people around them are going to help them. That way they're not in the shelter, they can be back with their family units or with friends and other people, and then, you know, they're going to come out of all those other areas. So you're going to have more money freed up here because we've invested in the addiction to kind of heal that problem.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Next, Councillor Pauls. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm up here, Sarah. Thank you. And you don't need to be nervous. Your service is much needed. So thank you. I learned a lot about you. And I'm just wondering, how long have you been a counselor or a harm reduction specialist? Or can you let me? How long have you
So
been?
I've been doing this since 2005. I initially started working with male young offenders, and I've worked with the homeless population. I've went into private practice, and then I also provide EAP services. I can't say the name of it, but to a large construction company with, I'm contracted through an agency, and that's who we service.
Right. I know while you were speaking to Councillor Wang that you said you had lived experience, and that's what brought you to this position. What got you out of that circumstance that you were in? What was the trigger that said, that's it, I'm going to get out of this situation and I'm going to better myself? Can you just pinpoint one thing that happened?
Well, like when I talk about addiction, because I do a lot of presentations to other counselors and different people in the community, a lot of times you got to look at people are hopeless at the point when they get where they have severe physical dependency on drugs, and kind of like that has become how they're living day to day, because the next step would unfortunately be suicide, right? Is you have to have supportive people who are around them that are healthy, that can provide them help, that aren't stigmatizing them and can kind of gently lead them to where they need to be. A lot of the times is the loss of hope. So when you talk to people and you kind of show them it can be done, this is where we're starting to see a lot of promise with peer recovery support, people that have gotten healthy and they're able to say, you know, I did it and these are the steps I've done, right? And then you have the counselors that provide them the cognitive work, because, you know, like I said, a lot of times the mental health component kind of is what's, you know, started this. And when people can't get help with their mental health, they start to look to alcohol and drugs to help them cope. So teaching people how to cope with their mental health and get them into mental health specialists as well. But yeah, a lot of it is just showing people that they can succeed and kind of rooting for them. One of the biggest things is when you get into addictions, it's kind of entrenched and you surround yourself with other people similar to yourself. So that's why you'll often see people with addictions kind of gravitate to other people, especially if they've been stigmatized and their families abandoned them. It almost becomes like a family. You'll see this with people who are in the encampments as well, right? They have people that relate to them and they build those close connections in a family. Unfortunately, though, everybody's kind of sick. So what it is kind of having healthy people around them and supporting them and showing them kind of how they can do these things, and knowing that it's going to take them time and sometimes they're going to relapse, and that's normal, and letting them know that to stay on track and they will get somewhere.
Thank you, Sarah. I have just two more questions. And one is, what does harm reduction look like to you? What is harm reduction?
So like I said, I chair the committee, the Harm Reduction Committee for our regulatory body. And so, for instance, the meeting I held last week, we talked about the stages of change. So we know when people are in pre-contemplation, these are people that don't recognize they have an issue or don't want to change. So those are when we would do things like needle exchange, safe consumption sites. We would do case management to help their other needs get met through housing, clothing, food. When they get into kind of contemplation, this is where we use motivational interviewing to kind of help people look at, you know, what are the pros of changing, what are the cons of changing, what are the pros of still using, what are the cons of using. And it's each time you get through like preparation, action, maintenance, and then if you get into relapse, harm reduction can be used in every stage of that. And ultimately, harm reduction can still be used in a way where if someone's using a less dangerous drug or using less, and they're still going to quit at some time, we still consider that harm reduction, right? This is why we're kind of starting to outline, because we want to have some some kind of governance. That way, especially the public, because the public has this perception that harm reduction is just we're enabling people and giving them needles, and we want them to see that, no, we want to meet people where they're at, and once they're getting that support, and a lot of people see they can make those changes, and there are people rooting for them, and their other needs are getting met, they can start to get off of drugs and alcohol and reach sobriety if they wish to, right? A lot of times you got to remember when people aren't housed, they don't have food, anything like that, that's where a lot of kind of the crisis comes in, because their basic human needs aren't being met. So through harm reduction as well, when you start providing those, people get hope and they say, okay, maybe I can get off of these substances. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I was going to ask you about the housing, what the housing looks like. And I could say housing with support is much needed here in Hamilton. It's not just housing for these people, but with support and people that could around them, wrap around support so that they could get help. My last question is, you mentioned about the finances portion, how more addiction specialist is needed, even in our city. Do you think the city would need a department of addiction specialists, and where we could get the funding from the province to say we have a department under the city with addiction specialists?
Yeah, I mean, if there was some way to kind of pivot it into public health, I'm sure that would be something. I believe we have enough numbers of people that warrant that we would need something like that, right? So again, but those are even like through the different funds the city gives. If they were to, you know, say to different agencies, like what is it, the community engagement funds and different stuff, we're going to prioritize if one of your things is having a counselor on board even once a week, bringing something into public health and having that as something where people can drop in to get, because like I said, although it seems like it's a large amount of money to invest, the return on that investment is people no longer needing other services, right? The ultimate goal is that they'll no longer need, you know, food bank, social services, the shelter system, all of these different things. So it will take a while for them, obviously, to get from one stage to the next. But yeah, public health could be one of the ways to do that, is to somehow put that into that department and have somewhere in the city kind of doing that.
Thank you, Sarah. I just want to applaud you. I want to say thank you to you, because you're one has lived experience. You knew, I think you said you were 13, I'm not sure, but how you were able to get out, and now you're there helping others. So Sarah, thank you, and thank you for coming, and please come more often. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. We don't have any more speakers, and to echo Councillor Pauls, thank you very much